Hi, I'm Grady Collane, and welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today by a special guest from Love Live Local. Do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners?
Sure. Hi, I'm Amanda Converse. I am the Executive Director of Love Live Local. We are a nonprofit based on Cape Cod, and our focus is on strengthening the local economy by promoting local businesses and celebrating a thriving community.
All right, awesome. It's been a while since we've had you in the studio. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So it is now, we're reaching the end of the official summer season now. Kids are back in school, so we wanted to do a general roundup. Had a lot of topics we wanted to cover today, a lot of it being review of the business itself, as well as looking forward to the holiday season. Starting off, do you mind just highlighting a little bit more about what exactly Love Live Local does, as well as how the summer went specifically for you guys?
Sure. Sure. So as I said, Love Live Local is very focused on promoting our local businesses and supporting them in any way we can. So the past few months, we've been really busy with administering a micro grant program called the Local Business Boost Program, and we do that in partnership with the Hyannis Main Street Business Improvement District. And this year, we were able to get enough money to give out $6,000 grants to 20 local businesses in the downtown Hyannis area, and those grants are used for a variety of things, and it really is to help the businesses elevate their online presence or their physical presence in order to compete with their corporate competitors. And so we spend a lot of time working with them to figure out where that money is best to be spent, and then we enlist local service providers to provide the work for them. So that could mean anything from building a new dressing room or a second dressing room for a store that might need to turn over customers faster, to rebuilding a website for somebody who has found that their website is old and they want to enhance it with new features. So it really runs the gamut, but it's a program that has been incredibly successful and we're really proud of. So we've spent the last couple of months doing that. And of course, we do a ton of advocacy and writing about issues that our small businesses are facing. And the most recent one that I wrote about was the increase in credit card fees and how that has been allowed to happen because we essentially have two providers. So we have a duopoly with Visa and MasterCard, and so they can essentially set their price, and small businesses have no choice but to adhere to that price because there's no competition for them to go to. So the credit card fees for small businesses, many of them cite that as their biggest expense after payroll. And then from 2021 to 2022, fees increased by 20% for a lot of businesses, which is a huge, huge cost. So we wrote an article in support of the Credit Card Competition Act that has been introduced into Congress and would require merchant service providers to introduce competition essentially into the marketplace. So hoping for that, because whenever there is competition for the large corporations, it's much better for our local businesses for sure. And then, of course, a lot of our summer is taken up planning and executing our Love Local Fests that happen. We had one at the end of July, so July 30th was our first one of the summer season, and then we have our next one coming up September 24th. So Sunday, September 24th, we will be back at Aselton Park with local makers and brands. We have about 80 of them that pop up for the day, and they're from all across Cape Cod and offer all sorts of things from jewelry to ceramics to apparel and other accessories, and then we have local bands playing and food trucks, and they're really great days. We say it's really our mission kind of in action, where we're connecting the community, supporting our economy, and bringing Cape Codders together.
That is awesome. I know that this has been something ongoing since I know COVID kind of put a damper on everything that was major events like
Yeah.
this. So it's been everybody's clawing back.
Yeah.
Can you give us a general review? Was it busy this time around? Have you had as many vendors as previous years?
Yeah, so at Aselton, we're pretty much locked in at 80 vendors. We can't really grow in that space, but our audience has certainly grown. We had the busiest festival we've ever had in July, so we had about 8,000 people come through the day, and that's the busiest one that we've had, and we're expecting the same for September. We call it our Locals Fest because, of course, this is the time of year that Cape Codders are a little less busy and are able to kind of get out and about and reconnect with each other. And so we're looking forward to a really busy September festival as well.
That is awesome. Now, as well, we were speaking a bit off microphone before, but we had been talking about other voices that you have been in communication with when it comes to a summer review. Being one of the summers now, we're trying to move away from the COVID-19 pandemic. I was really interested to hear more about what some of the challenges, obstacles, successes are of some of our local businesses. Can you enlighten for us?
Sure. Yeah, I was saying to Grady earlier that I have the benefit of having really great advisors in each of the economic sectors across the Cape. And so I was able to get in touch with them and find out, we still have a couple more weeks left, but of course the really high season has passed. And for the most part, I would say that things were really positive, which is what you always want to hear. It has been, I know we're post-COVID, but COVID is still sort of informing how people do business, and it's still, the impacts are still being felt. What was really interesting is that during the pandemic, our summer season, really, we were able to still have one. And so we were really fortunate in that regard. So 2021, 2022, especially for retailers, were banner years. And we had a lot of visitors here those 2 summers, and people had a lot of more disposable income, and we hadn't quite been hit with like price increases. So our retailers the last couple of years did very, very well. And I believe, restaurants did as well, but they were still dealing with a lot of rules and regulations and staffing issues. So, but the really good news is that people felt like they still had good years in spite of the fact that they were trying to meet numbers that seemed kind of impossible. There were definitely some soft spots in the tourism economy. I think this was one of those years. I mean, we were lucky that we had people move here. We had second homeowners spending much more time here. And we have the benefit of having visitors here a lot of the summer season. But I think a lot of people who might have traveled for a weekend potentially went elsewhere because they could go to Europe or go to other places that maybe were closed off to them in the last couple of years. So there were definitely some softer areas. I think our local hotels and motels were not seeing quite the demand. But our retailers and restaurants, they said it was still a weird summer and a tricky summer because it seemed off pattern, and so a lot of people were positive but also puzzled at what was happening. So I think it was really good to hear that because that's what you want to hear. I think the rainy days, although they do impact some businesses, for retailers and restaurants, they are pretty good because that means that people won't go to the beach. So we did have some rain help out the local businesses as well.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I never thought about that. Local business can, I suppose, be in competition with some of the local natural environment that people come here for.
Yeah, it's as a former retailer, when I would see a cloudy gray day, I would cheer because it would have meant that people were like, oh, let's not go to the beach today. Let's find something else to do. So, people obviously travel here for that experience, but they also need other forms of entertainment. So having our downtowns thriving is always really important. And so it seemed like overall, it was a positive experience. So
That is awesome.
yeah.
So as well, just because I wanted to talk more about some summer in review, you mentioned that program you guys are administering. I'm really curious as to what maybe some of the major obstacles are for local businesses in addition to credit card fees. But have you noticed there's a lot of people struggling with still getting hip with digital, or maybe there's just not enough space anymore? Like what's the issues that have been you've been hearing?
Sure. I mean, with that online presence, it's not. I think that the local businesses they know they need to do it, and they know that being on social media and having a strong online presence is important. I think it's really finding the time to do it and to execute it. And so many of the people who received the local business boost grant did hire somebody to do their social media for them to see, is this something that I want to continue to administer moving forward. And so we're happy that we're able to provide them with that capital to take the risk. And I think, our local business owners are they have a lot on their plate, they have a lot on their minds, and they have a lot to figure out. And, some people just aren't good with books, right? And some people just aren't good with the social media, and they definitely need that support there. It's challenging sometimes for them to find that support and also to pay for it. So I think it's not a question of whether or not they're hip to it. It's more of do they have the time and the capacity to do it themselves? Because it does take a lot of time. People think that it is something like, oh, you just snap a picture and you share a post, but sometimes really effective social media posts can take an hour to form and to really put together and in order to be effective. So
It's totally understandable. I mean, we as journalists understand the crunch involved. Feel like it might be a good time to say, for local news and information anytime, you can go to capecod.com.
Yes.
Just want to throw that out there. No, I'm teasing. But at any rate, so it's in addition to other challenges that we're facing is definitely staffing. We've heard a lot of, and that brought us to some of the major one of the major workforce components for the Cape Islands region is J1s, J1 workers and other workers from far out of state potentially. Have you been in communication with anybody locally in terms of how that's been going on since they've been changing some of the regulations surrounding J1s? Now they need to be provided with guaranteed housing, a big challenge for a lot of local employers. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big point. There are still sort of like COVID leftovers of these issues that were either the light was shown on them during COVID or it was sort of created by COVID. I think staffing, supply chain issues, pricing, and then people, customers could be the challenges that our local businesses were facing. And for the restaurant industry in particular, I know the J1 visas are a lifeline, and they are, even if they can find staff for the front of the house, which was a little bit easier for them this season, they weren't able to find staffing for back of the house. So the J1 visa holders are usually those people that fill in those gaps for them. And for the restaurants that were able to secure J1 visa holders, they said that they made their season. And so it's an incredibly important program. Usually the Cape would, in prior to COVID in years past, would get about 5,000 J1 visa holders. During COVID, about half were able to come, half that number. And then this past year it ticked up a little bit to a little over 3,000, but it wasn't enough. And to your point, a lot of the placement agencies were trying to have restaurants guarantee housing, which is not doable for most of our small businesses here on the Cape. And even if it is doable, that's a really messy scenario to have you be the employer and the landlord. And so I think, a lot of people have said, oh, businesses should just buy housing or build additional units on their property, but that can, I think, cause a lot of problems in terms of how do you, if the employee doesn't work out, what happens then? And being a landlord is not necessarily something that a lot of small business owners want to take on in addition to running their business. But like I said, the program is incredibly important, and filling those visas is incredibly important. So, however, the federal government can help, that's always welcome. And then I think, however we can find housing, and there are some creative ways that we can do that. I think that's important as well.
Mm-hmm. So the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, they did launch a housing program for J1 coordinators that is led by Christina Arbagiva, I believe, who has said that she's had a pretty solid summer so far. But a lot of it's based on people who are volunteering. They do pay rent,
Right.
But they're volunteering some like extra space they might have. Do you think it's going to be community solutions that are going to be the make or break for this?
I think it's going to be all of it.
All of it.
I think, but no, and I those community solutions I think are an incredibly important component to it, and matching J1s with like that kind of housing opportunity. I think that's huge. I also think we need to be open to having more dorm type structures, and for that are seasonal. And obviously to increase our housing stock in general is incredibly important for the economic development of our region.
Mm-hmm. Now, as well as we are getting now into the shoulder season, we still have a couple more weeks of summer, but they will be fleeting, unfortunately. I wanted to talk more about this second summer thing that I've been hearing so much about. We have the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. We have cycle events. I'm noticing in the past year, we're seeing a big growth in events that are being scheduled by design for the shoulder season of Cape Cod. Do you mind elaborating a bit more on what you've been hearing, some of the efforts that I believe Love Local has been spearheading on their own, and just a little bit more about that for us?
Sure. I mean, we've always maintained that we have a year-round economy here on the Cape, and there are not just opportunities for locals to enjoy this place, but also for visitors to come year-round. And the natural environment that you spoke of is gorgeous all year long. So I think we definitely have those opportunities, and the summer season tends to be a lot of families, and then when school begins, it changes things. But there are a lot of travelers who don't have children that do come to the Cape. So that's also September and October I think are really great seasons for that. Love of Local, we feel really strongly about putting on events in the shoulder seasons. We have not just the Love Local Fest in September coming up, but we do a holiday event during the Hyannis Village Stroll, and it's a really great shoulder season event that is definitely designed for travelers to enjoy as well as our locals to enjoy. And I think because the issues of the supply chain issues and the pricing issues for local businesses have gotten a little bit better. I think there are some supply chain issues linger, and I think some of those are because corporations were able to divert some supplies to themselves away from local retailers, but for the most part, our local businesses have said that they've seen that trend of things being really hard to get has gone by, which is good. There's obviously still some things that are still very expensive, so their inputs are still pricier and prices still are higher, but they're seeing some leveling off, which is giving them hope for and positivity for this upcoming season, because when you're having to spend more obviously on your supplies, you have to pass it off onto customers, which leads to unhappy customers. And I think we are actually participating in the second summer cycle event, so there's efforts like that to attract people to the Cape, not just in July and August, which is always great. All of those are so welcome, and now it's just we got to get the word out to people that they're happening and that they're worth coming to.
Have you gotten any angry letters from residents that are talking about you revealing the secret that is September is actually the best
Don't
time?
tell anyone. I know. Well, that's why we call it local summer, right? Well, it naturally is a little bit quieter, so we get to enjoy it a little bit more. I know people are like, don't tell anybody, but no, we love our visitors, and our local businesses love our visitors, and not just in the summer, but allowing us to access customers year round is really great. So, yeah.
So that is awesome. It is. I find myself preferring the cycling weather in the fall, regardless in terms of the hot summer.
Yeah.
But I do have questions about like staffing, because we have the J1s in the summer, but that also kind of comes to a close for this season.
Yep.
So is that going to be a major hurdle?
Well,
there?
and that is something that a couple people did point out, that when we lose our seasonal help, and it's also been an intense summer, businesses will naturally, close for a couple of days or amend their hours, and so it's this push and pull, right? They want to be there for the year-round customer, but they don't want to burn their employees out, and so trying to find enough staffing is a year-round problem. And those year-round employees also are having trouble finding housing, so that creates an issue all year round. It's not just summer staffing. Of course, the number of people that are here just create that phenomenon in the summer. But yes, there is a concern that it's they love their local customers, but they've also got to make sure that their staff is taken care of, and that they're not burning them out. So we encourage people to continue to be patient, and to try to understand when you're seeing higher prices on a menu, or when you're seeing restaurants closed or stores closed on certain days. It's not because they don't want to do better for you. It's just that their costs have increased, or they're not able to fill the staffing needs that they have.
So. Definitely want to be sustainable. That does bring me to the holiday season. I know it's of holidays, just by the way they work. They're going to be here. We're going to be Christmas now in about 7 seconds.
I know, it's insane.
As soon as we close this off, it'll be here in a flash.
Yeah.
So what is the Cape like for the holiday season? And do you think that it might be easier to kind of bridge the gap between summer and holidays with that shoulder season now? Or how do you think that plays into the grand plan when it comes to commerce on Cape?
Yeah, I mean, for us, Love Live Local, we have a retail store, so we are in it with the local business owners too. We see the fluctuations, and but for us, it really is June through December are busy months, and that drops off a little bit naturally after the summer, but there's really no reason. The holiday season for our retail store is our busiest time of year, because locals are amazing and want to shop local, and we hear that from a lot of our local retailers. So there's definitely opportunity there to kind of keep extending that. And I think, to your point, there are events kind of are attractive in driving that, and then the more our businesses stay open and then see that opportunity for to serve customers into that season, I think it'll just be this self-fulfilling kind of prophecy of it'll keep, as long as people are coming to them, they will be there for them. So
if you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
So that is awesome. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. That's about all the time that we have, but is there anything else you wanted to highlight for our listeners while I still have you, either about summer review, more stuff that you guys do, especially with assistance and aid? I know there's been a lot of demand for extra assistance after COVID. So programs like that, or anything else you'd like to talk about while we're here?
Yeah, I mean, we're always just asking people to support our local businesses in any way they can all year round, and that definitely means patronizing them when you can, but it also means just showing them support, in whether it's on social media or we'll get a nice review or something like that. I think it's always, they're working so hard and doing their best to make this place special and unique. And so we always encourage people to shop local and live local.
As we before we close out as well, just for the people who are interested in the Love Local Fest coming up in September, where can people learn more? And do you need to sign up or anything? Registration?
No, it's free and open to the public all day on September 24th. So it's a Sunday. It's from 11 to 5, and you can find out more at lovelivelocal.com.
All right, awesome. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm Grady Collane, and this has been Sunday Journal.